The lights were brighter than ever that night at the Toyota Center. It was one of those games where everything seemed to be at stake, not just the continuation of a playoff campaign, but also the pride, reputation, and perhaps even the future of some of the biggest names in the NBA. The Houston Rockets, facing an almost irreversible and hostile scenario, found strength in the desperation and pressure that only great moments can impose. With the series against the Golden State Warriors at 3-2 in favor of the Californians, the Rockets needed to win or say goodbye. But that wasn't just any victory, it was a cry of resistance. The final score of 131-116 echoed as a reminder that no team should be underestimated when cornered. The first half was an offensive avalanche. The home team put up 76 points on the scoreboard before halftime, an offensive feat that bewildered even the most optimistic Warriors fans. 3 players surpassed 20 points, each finding their own rhythm amidst the organized chaos of a game loaded with tension. On the other side of the court, the figure of Stephen Curry was almost mythical, and, that night, also visibly human. Discomfort in his right hand was evident. After the game, he was seen icing his thumb, an image that quickly took over social media and sparked intense debates among analysts, fans, and, of course, the players on the court. An injury at the most critical point of the season? The timing was cruel, but basketball shows no mercy. More than the physical pain, what concerned fans was the impact that injury could have on the continuation of the series. The next game, which could seal the Warriors' passage to the next round, would be played at home, but now a shadow loomed over the performance of their main star. And as if the situation weren't dramatic enough, another narrative gained traction. Accusations that Dillon Brooks had deliberately tried to aggravate Curry's injury. In a play caught by an attentive fan and shared widely on social media, Brooks appeared to strike Curry's thumb in a suspicious manner during Game 4. Quickly, commentators pointed out similar actions in other plays. The footage was analyzed frame by frame. Was Brooks, known for his provocative style and explosive behavior, exploiting an opponent's physical vulnerability? The cameras didn't forgive, nor did the fans. But when asked, Brooks didn't back down. In a defiant tone, he stated, "I play the game the way it has to be played. If you come on the court hurt, you're going to have to deal with the consequences. If it was my ankle, I'd know I'd be the target. So, let them say whatever they want on the broadcasts. It doesn't affect me." The statement hit like a bomb behind the scenes of the league, and although the Rockets' coach, Ime Udoka, preferred silence in the face of the controversy, it was clear that the subject was far from cooling down. Brooks wasn't a stranger to controversy. His career had always flirted with the line between intensity and provocation, but now he wasn't just the villain. He was also the man at the center of a mental game that could redefine the course of the series. Meanwhile, the Warriors found themselves at a crossroads. The next game could secure their spot in the next round, where the Minnesota Timberwolves, fresh off a victory against the Lakers, were already waiting. But could the team keep its focus amid injuries, controversies, and growing pressure? The Golden State season had already been a roller coaster. Even before the playoffs began, the front office made a risky and surprising move by bringing Jimmy Butler to the roster. The arrival of the forward was seen as a bold step, not just because of the salary cap burden he carried, but also due to the immediate impact on a team that had long depended on Curry's offensive explosions and Draymond Green's energetic leadership. Butler brought with him more than just numbers. He carried a Warriors mentality. With every possession, he exuded intensity. His physical and determined style seemed like the perfect fit for a team that needed more muscle and soul to face increasingly fierce battles in the West. But behind the scenes, the story was even more complex. Before Butler's arrival was finalized, Golden State had flirted with the idea of trying something even bigger, bringing Giannis Antetokounmpo, the monstrous Greek from the Milwaukee Bucks. The attempt was brief but intense. Conversations were started, possibilities evaluated, but the dream crumbled in the face of reality. With Butler's acquisition, the space for a contract of Giannis's size disappeared. Not only because of the figures involved, but also due to the impossibility of maintaining a competitive roster after relinquishing the necessary resources to make an attractive proposal to the Bucks. Other teams with promising young talents and abundant draft picks would be in a far more favorable position in a potential pursuit of Giannis. Still, Golden State's interest exposed something profound, an insatiable thirst for titles. The franchise isn't satisfied with what it has achieved. It wants more, and that philosophy is part of its DNA. From years of absolute dominance to periods of rebuilding, the front office has always stayed alert, ready to take the next bold step. Now, with Butler as the new central piece, the plans changed. The window to add Giannis closed almost immediately. And while the Greek remains in Milwaukee, his situation is also far from stable. The Bucks started poorly in their series against the Pacers, and facing an unexpected 0-2, rumors began to swirl. Giannis has already given clear hints that his stay in Milwaukee is contingent upon the team's competitiveness. "I need new challenges," he said recently. "If that challenge is here, fine. But if not, I have to evaluate what's best for my career." A subtle but powerful message. Amidst all this, the Warriors remain focused on the present. They know that the upcoming games are not just about winning or losing. They are also about defining the future direction of the project in the medium term. With Butler alongside Curry and Draymond, the team is trying to extract the maximum from this combination, but they know they can't afford to make mistakes. Curry's injury and Brooks's provocative behavior are just two more ingredients in this boiling cauldron of emotions, strategies, and tensions. The NBA thrives on narratives, and this series between the Warriors and the Rockets is offering all the layers fans love: drama, rivalry, redemption, and uncertainty. The season isn't over yet, but it's already clear that the paths to glory are treacherous. And in the end, only those who are willing to play hurt, face the villains, and take bold risks will reach what truly matters. With Game 6 approaching and tensions rising, the atmosphere in San Francisco was electrifying. The return home seemed, in theory, an advantage for the Golden State, but the reality was more complex. Stephen Curry's thumb injury was not just a physical setback, it was a psychological factor. Every dribble, every shot, every attempt to drive was watched closely by teammates, opponents, and fans, all trying to catch any sign of limitation. The media, in turn, intensified the pressure. The video of Dillon Brooks, where he clearly hits Curry's injured hand, was repeated on every sports news outlet, fueling the villain narrative. For many, it was no longer just about a playoff series. It had become a silent war between integrity and provocation. Brooks, with his controversial history, became the perfect symbol of antagonism, and the rivalry with the Warriors gained new, almost cinematic dimensions. While fans were divided between indignation and admiration for how calmly Curry was handling the situation, behind the scenes, the Warriors' medical team was monitoring every detail. The decision to put him on the court for Game 6 was made with caution, but not without concern. It was evident that the number 30 was not in peak physical condition. Still, his presence was vital, not just for his talent, but for the leadership he brought. The simple act of lacing up his sneakers and stepping onto the court served as emotional fuel for the team. In the Rockets' locker room, the atmosphere was different. The victory in Game 5 had rekindled a flame that many thought was extinguished. Players like Jalen Green and Alperen Sengun had found an offensive rhythm, while veterans like Fred VanVleet kept their composure in the decisive moments. Ime Udoka, always cold and calculated, knew that inflaming the team with empty speeches would do no good. He focused on tactical adjustments, game reading, and above all, discipline. If the plan was to exploit Curry's physical limitation, no one on the team needed to hear it aloud. They had all already understood. As Game 6 began, the arena exploded with a mix of hope and anxiety. Every possession seemed to carry the weight of destiny. Butler, a newcomer but already central to the team, seemed to feel the moment like few others. His demeanor was that of an experienced warrior, not forcing plays, but being present in all the relevant actions. Rebounds, steals, blocks, off-ball movement. He became the team's thermometer, filling gaps that didn't always show up in the statistics. The first half of the game was a balanced duel with constant alternation on the scoreboard. The Rockets maintained the offensive momentum from the previous game, playing good defense and capitalizing on every mistake from the opposition. Curry, for his part, showed visible pain after some falls and contacts, but he didn't let the intensity drop. His three-point shots were still lethal, though in lesser volume. It was in the third quarter that the game changed tone. A 10-0 run by the Rockets put the visitors in the lead comfortably. The Toyota Center seemed to echo even from a distance, as if the spirit of the previous victory had traveled across the country with the team. Brooks, again, was a protagonist, this time with a surprisingly efficient offensive performance, in addition to his already expected defensive contribution. He ignored the boos, the shouts, the provocations. He seemed motivated by them. On the Warriors bench, head coach Steve Kerr's expression mixed concentration with frustration. He knew the original plan depended on Curry being in better condition. He tried calling on Jordan Poole, Moses Moody, even Jonathan Kuminga in search of a spark, but the response didn't come. The 117-102 loss was painful. The tie in the series, while still leaving room for a comeback, was a clear sign that something wasn't working. And what followed was Game 7, the most dreaded moment, where legacies are solidified or shattered. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, conversations about the future were intensifying. Although the focus was on the present, executives knew they would soon need to make crucial decisions. The aging, pressured roster could not sustain this level of demand indefinitely without a deep restructuring. Jimmy Butler, despite his brief time with the blue and gold jersey, had already earned absolute respect within the organization. His commitment was unquestionable. But at the same time, he was aware that collective success depended on complementary pieces in top form, and at the moment the Warriors did not have enough of those pieces. Rumors began circulating again about Giannis Antetokounmpo. After yet another Milwaukee Bucks loss in the series against the Pacers, the speculation picked up steam. It was as if destiny conspired to reignite a spark that seemed extinguished. Giannis's possible dissatisfaction with the situation in Milwaukee gained more traction with every stumble from the team. And the Warriors, while limited in assets, still had a trump card that few franchises could match: a proven winning culture. Stephen Curry, even while dealing with pain, remained a revered figure. Draymond Green, with his vocal leadership and general-like presence on the court, kept the locker room united. Combining these pillars with an emerging star like Butler, perhaps the arrival of a superstar like Giannis wasn't entirely out of reach, at least in theory. But it would all depend on the outcome of this series. Game 7 arrived like a hurricane. The Oracle Arena was packed, flags waving, an electricity in the air that only exists when the season is hanging by a thread. Kerr made a bold adjustment. He gave more minutes to younger players, trying to surprise the opponent with energy and speed. The strategy worked in the opening minutes, with a sequence of fast breaks and three-pointers that fired up the crowd. However, the Rockets were prepared. Sengun's growth as an offensive facilitator made the attack fluid, and Jalen Green was having one of his inspired nights. Every play seemed like a reminder that the Houston team was not just there to participate, they were there to win. The game was decided in the final minutes. With the score tied and less than 2 minutes on the clock, Butler took responsibility. A sharp cut, a spin, a contested layup. Warriors ahead. But the response came quickly, with Green sinking an almost impossible three-pointer. The final play was emblematic. Curry, with the ball in hand, surrounded, hesitated. The pain in his thumb, perhaps, was the thousandth of a second that cost him the perfect shot. The ball hit the rim and bounced out, and with the sound of the buzzer, destiny was sealed. Elimination. The silence in the arena was almost palpable, but there were no boos, only respect. It was the end of an epic battle, of a series marked by pain, overcoming, provocation, and talent. The future was still uncertain, but one thing was clear: the spirit of the Golden State Warriors remained alive. In the following days, the headlines shifted away from the result and focused on what would come next. Would there be changes? Was Giannis closer to leaving Milwaukee? Would the Warriors make an aggressive offer? Or would they trust the current project, now led by Butler? These questions had no answers yet. But, like everything in the NBA, it was just a matter of time. 2 days after the elimination, the silence at the Warriors' training facility was thick. Players were emptying lockers, exchanging restrained goodbyes, and slowly, the locker room emptied, not only physically, but emotionally. The golden era, built with sweat, impossible shots, and a winning culture, seemed to reach a turning point. Curry, always reserved in defeats, did not avoid the press. Even with his hand bandaged, he looked firmly at the cameras. It was a season of learning. We are far from finished, but maybe we need to look in the mirror and ask, what needs to change? The words resonated. Behind the scenes, Bob Myers, now working in a special advisory role, even after his official departure, was meeting with Mike Dunleavy Jr., the current general manager. The conversation was straightforward. The Warriors were stuck between two eras. One, defined by dynasties and June appearances. The other, still under construction, but uncertain. The future of players like Kevin Looney, Andrew Wiggins, and even Draymond Green was being evaluated. No one was untouchable, only Curry, and now Butler. Jimmy Butler had become the link between the past and the future. At 35, he still delivered elite defense, game intelligence, and leadership. But he knew he was there for a greater purpose, to win a title. The collective failure in that Game 7 didn't erase that. It only made the need for reinforcements clearer. And the name that lingered in every meeting room in San Francisco was Giannis Antetokounmpo. On the other side of the country, the Milwaukee Bucks were also facing their own ghosts. The loss to the Pacers had exposed a stagnant team. Damian Lillard had been invisible. Chris Middleton seemed a shadow of his former all-star self. And Giannis, although still dominant, no longer hid his frustration in interviews. At 30, with 2 MVPs and 1 title, the Greek forward found himself trapped in a project that, ironically, had not kept pace with his own growth. Sometimes it takes courage to step out of the comfort zone, he said after the elimination, a statement enough to set the entire NBA on fire. That was when the Warriors acted. The proposal, carefully crafted, involved first-round picks, 2026, 2028, 2030, Jonathan Kuminga, Moses Moody, Andrew Wiggins, and possibly Klay Thompson in a sign and trade. It was aggressive, audacious, almost desperate, but also logical. Curry and Giannis together weren't just a talent alliance, they were the merging of legacies. The best shooter in history and the most unstoppable transition athlete since LeBron James. Add Butler, and what was formed was a trio capable of rivaling any recent super team. But there were obstacles, the biggest of them, convincing Giannis. The project was sold in detail. A direct conversation between Curry and Antetokounmpo over the phone served as the catalyst. Steph made no promises. He simply explained what made the Warriors different. Here, culture wins before talent, but if we have both, no one can stop us. Giannis listened and responded with silence. 2 days later, his agent called the Bucks front office. He's open to conversation. The summer was a whirlwind. Rumors took over the sports media. ESPN, The Athletic, Bleacher Report, all covered the possible new formation of the Monsters of the West. Draymond Green, despite his guaranteed contract, met with management asking to stay. If you bring the Greek, I'll do whatever it takes. Play center, guard point guards, come off the bench. The transaction still took weeks of negotiations, and it only materialized in July after Giannis refused to sign an extension with the Bucks. The Milwaukee front office, pressured to not lose its star without return, closed the deal. Giannis Antetokounmpo was the new Warrior. The NBA trembled. In an official statement, Giannis said, "I chose San Francisco because I believe in culture. I believe in legacy. And I believe there is still room for us to make history." Curry reacted with a simple post on Instagram. A photo of the two of them hugging after the 2023 All-Star Game with the caption, "Now it's serious." The following season began under the spotlight. The Warriors, now with Giannis, Curry, Butler, and Draymond as the defensive mastermind, had a roster balanced between experience and young players ready to contribute. Trace Jackson-Davis assumed a more solid role. Brandon Podziemski evolved as a tactical piece, and the result came quickly. Golden State led the West almost from start to finish. Curry, relieved of the burden of carrying the team offensively every night, was more efficient than ever. Giannis led the fast breaks, dominated the rebounds, and closed games with aggression. Butler, more discreet in statistics, became the tactical closure of the system, defending opposing stars, organizing the perimeter, and leading behind the scenes. By the end of the regular season, the Warriors had 62 wins. They were officially the team to beat. In the playoffs, they dispatched the Clippers in 5 games. Then the Timberwolves, in a physical series, decided with authority. In the Western Finals, they met the Lakers, now in decline, and swept them coldly. In the Grand Final, the opponent was the Boston Celtics. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown were in form. Drew Holiday led the defense. But the experience and synergy of the San Francisco trio prevailed. In Game 6 on the road, Curry scored 32 points. Giannis posted a triple-double. Butler, with 17 points, 3 steals, and smothering defense on Brown, was the silent hero. When the clock hit 0 and the score showed 112-104, the Warriors were back on top of the world. Stephen Curry lifted his 5th trophy with restrained tears. Giannis smiled like a child, and Jimmy Butler, finally a champion, uttered a phrase that resonated throughout the league. Sometimes it's not about who gets there first. It's about who doesn't give up in the end. After the title, the Golden State Warriors were no longer just a winning franchise. They were a modern NBA legend. The conquest of the 6th trophy had an immediate impact on several fronts, not only in the present but also in the future of the league, with the Warriors consolidating themselves as the reference for a successful model that knew how to blend history, adaptability, and boldness. Giannis's arrival was more than just an adjustment to the roster. It was an act of affirmation. The team, now even more balanced and complete, had done the unthinkable. They had built a super team without sacrificing their legacy, their essence, and the team spirit that had always been their trademark. This chemistry between the veterans, Curry, Green, Butler, and the unbeatable energy of Giannis Antetokounmpo created something rare in sports. A team with multiple leaders, each bringing their own shine and responsibility. The victory over the Celtics in the finals was just the beginning of a new era. What followed in the months ahead were strategic adjustments, but also a mindset shift across the league. The question that hung in the air was, who could compete with this team? With Giannis dominating transition, Curry being the biggest perimeter threat, Butler providing leadership in decisive moments, and Draymond being the impenetrable defensive anchor, it seemed there was no opponent capable of matching this quartet. The following season began with a new challenge, not just staying at the top, but seeking longevity. The NBA, relentless in its evolution, offered no space for lone heroes or unchanging dynasties. The team needed to reinvent itself once again, game by game, and the Warriors, with their intrinsic culture of adaptation and focus on the collective, knew that the key to staying dominant would be flexibility, both tactically and humanly. With Giannis and Curry still at their best, Butler continued to be a fundamental presence for defense and the emotional dynamics of the team. Draymond Green, however, began to show signs that at 35, he might not have much more to offer on the court, but his leadership in the locker room became even more crucial. He was the link between generations, the guardian of the Warriors' culture. As the season progressed and the Warriors maintained their position at the top of the conference, a new generation of players was also developing. Jonathan Kuminga, who had seemed like a disposable piece in the trade for Giannis, found his role as a versatile defender and unpredictable shooter. Moses Moody also solidified himself as a long-range threat and solid defender, rounding out the roster with a young, promising group that gave the team the depth needed to handle any opponent. And so, as the end of another season approached, the Warriors were ready to defend their title, but not without first asking, what comes next? The league, now with more super teams and stars-moving franchises, was living in a constant chess game. Teams like the Lakers, Celtics, and Bucks were in full rebuilding mode, while younger teams like the Suns and Grizzlies were trying to take the elite's place. However, the Golden State Warriors, with their core of champions, remained a reference. The question now wasn't about when they would stop, but how they would continue to define the NBA in the coming years. The new generation of stars was already arriving, but the Warriors, with the excellence formula built by Curry, Green, Butler, and Giannis, showed no signs of tiring. After all, the Warriors' winning culture wasn't just in their style of play or the trophies they had won, but in their innate ability to reinvent themselves when everything seemed saturated. They were a franchise not just of titles, but of continuous adaptation, and that was the closest to eternity any team could reach. In the end, the Golden State Warriors weren't just a team to be defeated, but an idea that, in sports, as in life, the greatest success is not just in conquering, but in remaining relevant when everyone believes you've already reached the top. And the Warriors, more than ever, were ready to continue this journey, knowing that the next challenge was always the greatest. The story of their dynasty, like that of all great teams, would be written in chapters, but with the certainty that the legacy, this indeed, would never be erased. Kai Sotto, at 22 years old, is an athlete with an impressive track record, something that grabs everyone's attention. His size is remarkable, but what truly makes a difference is the combination of this attribute with his skill and agility. With a clear mastery of the paint game and an offensive ability that stands out, he is the type of player who can make a significant impact on any team. When we consider his qualities, it becomes evident that we're talking about a center who is not only a rim protector, but also creative on offense, making him a real promise for the future. However, his stature and talent are only part of the challenge. The transition to the NBA is a tough process that requires much more than one might expect. The intensity of the league, the speed of the plays, and the physical demand are levels higher than those found in any other basketball league in the world, and this presents a huge challenge for any young player. If Kai Sotto were to be signed by the Golden State Warriors, the implications go beyond the court. The Bay Area, where cultural diversity is a trademark, has a significant Filipino community. Kai's presence as a Filipino would not just be another addition to the team, but a symbol of pride and representation for millions of fans around the world. His impact could be felt not only on the court, but also in the hearts of the fans. Imagine the energy at the Chase Center upon seeing this player, who represents a segment of the global population with so much passion. The Filipino fan base, with its contagious enthusiasm, could transform the atmosphere, creating a unique vibe at every game. Furthermore, by attracting more international attention, the Warriors could expand their brand to unimaginable levels, reaching new markets, especially in Southeast Asia, where basketball has been growing significantly. The entry of a young athlete into the NBA is always a moment filled with challenges, and with Kai Sotto, it wouldn't be any different. The league demands more than just natural skill. Consistency and defensive agility are equally essential. Although the athlete has shown potential at various times, his experience in the Japanese league demonstrated that there are still adjustments to be made. Moments of brilliance are clear, especially on offense, but the NBA's level is unforgiving, and every weakness is quickly exploited. Kai will need to improve his adjustment to the fast-paced rhythm of the league and refine aspects of his game that may be vulnerable. As much as the NBA is a trial by fire for any player, the good news for Kai is that the Warriors, a franchise known for developing talent, could be the perfect environment for him. Under the guidance of great sports legends like Stephen Curry and Draymond Green, along with a highly qualified coaching staff, Kai could evolve in impressive ways, learning and absorbing as much as possible from those who are references in global basketball. However, the pressure to be ready to contribute will be immense. Every spot on the Warriors roster is valuable, and the team aims to win more titles now while preparing for the future with promising young players. Therefore, Kai will need to quickly show that he's ready to be an important piece in the team's pursuit of their next championship. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep up with more content like this, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. That way, you'll stay updated on everything happening in the basketball world. Oh, and don't forget to turn on the notification bell to get notified whenever a new video is posted here. Leave your comment too, we want to know your opinion. See you in the next video.